Good afternoon. It's April Davis, PI. It's March 2025, and I'm here today to talk to you about the deaths of actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa. Before I get into that, let me just tell you that I've been a PI for over 35 years, and I've investigated hundreds of death cases. I've investigated everything from natural cause deaths, accidental deaths, homicides, and even suicides. And at one point in my career, there was a double death of a husband and a wife found in a remote location in a remote house where the husband and wife had been inside the home with their animals, deceased for almost a month. As soon as I started hearing the details of the Gene Hackman situation, I started thinking that this was eerily similar to the case that I had all those years ago where the couple was found alone, deceased in their home. I started thinking that perhaps Betsy Arakawa passed suddenly, and her husband, in the state of his health and with his Alzheimer's diagnosis, maybe he was alone in the house with her deceased and eventually passed away. It seems like more evidence is now pointing to that exact scenario. Just so eerily similar for me to see cases so similar, even involving the animals inside the house. In my case, the animals were still alive miraculously. There were just things about it that didn't make sense, and I can't go into the details here, but I wanted to catch you up on the latest on Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa, and I want to go over some information that I read in a news article that was published by USA Today. The name of the article is called "A Mask, a Cane, and a Frantic Dog Inside the Final Hours of Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa." One of the last times anyone saw Betsy Arakawa in public, she was strolling through the aisles of a CVS pharmacy in Santa Fe, her face covered by a mask, likely because of the virus ravaging her lungs. Within hours, she was dead. Security cameras captured Arakawa's image during her visit to the pharmacy on February the 11th, the last day she is believed to have been alive. The longtime wife and main caregiver of actor Gene Hackman, Arakawa had buried herself with errands that day, sending an email, stopping at the pharmacy, and doing some grocery shopping. Most notable was what she didn't do. She failed to swing by Gruta Veterinary Hospital in southwest Santa Fe to pick up the prescription dog food and medication she had ordered for one of her 3 dogs, Xena, Bear, and Nikita. Arakawa had been taking her dogs to that vet for years and never once missed a food or meds pickup. The following week, sometime after February 17th, Gruta's staff tried calling Arakawa on her cell phone to remind her the food was ready. No one picked it up. She was devoted to those dogs, Robert Gruta, the hospital's owner, told USA Today. She was consistent, predictable. We knew something was wrong when she didn't pick up the food on time. Unbeknownst to Gruta and his staff, Arakawa, age 65, was already dead, splayed on a bathroom floor of the Santa Fe home she shared with Hackman, seized by a rare but potentially lethal disease spread by rodents. Hackman, 95, racked by advanced Alzheimer's disease, lived another week after his wife died, then died in a mudroom on the other side of the house, a cane and sunglasses found nearby. What exactly did Hackman do during that time? Did he even know his wife was dead? Was he aware that one of the couple's dogs, Xena, a 12-year-old Australian Kelpie mix, had also died while locked inside of a crate in their home? News of the couple's twin deaths had rattled and baffled the Santa Fe community, where they were at once pillars and reclusive. On Friday, Santa Fe County Sheriff Adon Mendoza and other officials held a news conference to reveal details of the causes and dates of their deaths. Yet more questions remain. How and why, for example, did Arakawa, by all accounts a youthful, energetic woman, contract the hantavirus and die so suddenly? I'm more confused and really devastated even more, Santa Fe restaurateur Doug Lanham, a close friend of the couple's and Hackman's former business partner, said after the news conference. How do you connect all the dots? Arakawa began bringing her dogs to Gruta Veterinary Hospital several years ago and quickly became a favorite at the animal hospital. She reliably brought the dogs to appointments and chatted with staff and Gruta. She regularly called Xena by her full name, Zinfandel, and confided to Gruta that she was named after Hackman's favorite wine. She was an excellent dog owner, excellent caretaker to those dogs. She really doted on them. One of the last times the hospital staff saw Arakawa was in late January when she came in to pick up Xena, who had had a major surgery. She was her typical alert self. The staff instructed her to confine Xena to a crate to keep her from running around and undoing the effects of the surgery. She was friendly, dutiful. That's how we make a living with owners that care for their animals and see us consistently. By this time, even the couple's closest friends were seeing them less and less around town. Lanham, who used to golf regularly with Hackman and dined with the couple, hadn't seen them in more than 5 years. A few weeks after picking up Xena from the hospital, on February the 11th, Arakawa began her day by exchanging emails with a massage therapist around 11:21 a.m., according to Mendoza, the sheriff. She later shopped at a Sprouts Farmers Market grocery store between 3:30 and 4:15 p.m., then visited a CVS pharmacy. Surveillance footage showed her wearing a mask. Arakawa returned home around 5:15 and used a remote to open the gate at Santa Fe Summit, the gated community in the foothills just outside of Santa Fe, where the couple had lived for decades. She made it inside the sprawling 9,000-square-foot home, but by now the hantavirus was clawing its way into her lungs. Her hours were numbered. First discovered in 1993, the hantavirus began spreading from the southwest to across the United States. Humans contract it by breathing in aerosolized urine, feces, or saliva from a rodent. In New Mexico, the tiny deer mouse is usually the culprit. Cases are rare. As of 2024, New Mexico had only seen 136 infections over the past 50 years, with just 5 of those in Santa Fe County, according to Aaron Phipps, the state public health veterinarian. Dogs don't get the disease, and the strain found in the U.S. cannot spread from human to human. Symptoms are akin to getting the flu, body aches, fever, abdominal pain. But the disease can quickly turn deadly. After incubation, the virus for anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks and up to 8 weeks, an infected person's lungs will begin to fill with fluids and escape through capillaries, triggering coughing and shortness of breath, said Greg Mertz, professor of internal medicine and former chief of the Division of Infectious Diseases at the University of New Mexico. Hantavirus has a staggering mortality rate of between 35 to 50%. Unfortunately, it could progress to cardiogenic shock over a period of just a few hours. Even in a hospital, most deaths occur within the first day. During cardiogenic shock, the heart stops pumping adequate blood supply to the organs, blood pressure plummets, and the patient lapses into cardiac arrhythmia or an irregular heartbeat. From there, it's very difficult to save an infected person. The virus is difficult to detect as many of the symptoms are akin to the flu. There is no medicine to combat it, and once it spreads, it's hard to stop it from overwhelming the body. Mertz said he was treating a patient once with hantavirus at the University of New Mexico Hospital. The patient was sitting on a hospital bed and began complaining about feeling ill. Their blood pressure suddenly dropped, and they went into shock. Within 20 minutes, the patient was dead. It's a pretty horrific progression. There aren't a lot of diseases with higher mortality rates. At 1:43 p.m. on February 26, a maintenance man who had done work on the Hackman home for years visited the property and found the front door ajar. He peeked through a window and saw Arakawa lying on the floor. He then notified another maintenance man who works for the subdivision, who called 911. paramedics with the Santa Fe Fire Department arrived at the scene, pushed open the front door, and saw Arakawa lying on the nearby bathroom floor. She looked deceased, so they retreated back outside and radioed the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office for backup. Backed by several sheriff's deputies, the 2 paramedics and 3 other Santa Fe firefighters inspected Arakawa's body, which had noticeable signs of decomposition. A bottle of prescription thyroid medication was on the bathroom counter, loose pills spread across the countertop. The first responders then fanned out through the sprawling 4-bedroom home, meticulously checking bedrooms, hallways, bathrooms, and other closets for people or signs of foul play. 30 minutes passed without a sign of anyone else. As they searched, one of the couple's dogs kept running up to them, barking and running off in a different direction. At first, paramedics thought the dog wanted to play. Then they realized it wanted them to follow. They realized the dog was trying to say, "Hey, come over here, come over here." The dog led them to a mudroom in the far end of the home next to the kitchen. It then sat down next to the body of Hackman, who was crumpled on the floor. Sunglasses and a cane laid nearby. His hands were blackened and showed signs of decomposition. A back door was propped open, allowing the dogs to go in and out of the home. Firefighters went through the home and 2 detached structures on the property with handheld gas monitors measuring oxygen levels and looking for signs of harmful gases such as carbon monoxide. The readings were nothing out of the norm. The gas company later did its own inspection and also found no harmful levels of gases. The 2 workers who first alerted the police to the home told investigators they rarely saw the owners while conducting maintenance around the house. They said they mostly communicated via phone calls or texts, and primarily with Arakawa. First responders noted how clean and organized the home appeared. It was very neat, organized, with no clutter. The 2 surviving dogs, Bear and Akita, were rounded up and transported to a local pet daycare facility. Hackman's and Arakawa's bodies were taken to the state office of the medical investigator at the University of New Mexico for autopsies. At 2 p.m., Friday, outside the sheriff's office in Santa Fe, Heather Jarrell stepped before the cameras. For over a week, media from all over the world had descended upon New Mexico, all looking for answers to the same question: how did Hackman and Arakawa die? Jarrell, New Mexico's chief medical examiner, had led the queries into the couple's deaths from her lab in Albuquerque. Finally, she had some answers. Hackman's heart had showed signs of previous heart attacks, a pacemaker, and multiple heart surgeries, as well as a scarred kidney due to chronic high blood pressure. Hackman's cause of death was cardiovascular disease. He also had advanced Alzheimer's disease, which contributed to his death. In other less experienced medical examiners' offices, Arakawa's cause of death may have gone undetected, but Jarrell and her staff knew enough to recognize the microscopic evidence revealed in the patient's lungs. Arakawa tested negative for COVID-19 and influenza, but positive for the hantavirus. The cause of death? Hantavirus pulmonary syndrome. Her lungs had crashed as the virus branched throughout her body. As Jarrell examined the patients, she received a phone call from one of Hackman's doctors. His pacemaker had shown activity as recently as February the 17th. After further inspecting the device, Jarrell said the investigators noticed Hackman's heart also showed an atrial fibrillation, or irregular heartbeat, the following day on February the 18th. That's likely when he died. Mendoza said authorities are still waiting on more data from 2 cell phones collected at the home, as well as results from a necropsy on Zena. But the medical examiner's information answered a lot of the questions they had. Hackman was in the house for 7 days after Arakawa died. There were no cameras inside the house to record his movements. In that time, he didn't make any phone calls or otherwise ask for help. He hadn't eaten, but somehow managed to stay hydrated. Clouded by Alzheimer's and struggling with a scarred heart, he was alone while his wife and main caregiver was dead on the bathroom floor near the front of the home. With all that was just said, it is highly unlikely that Gene Hackman ever knew that his wife Betsy had passed away. Thank you so much for watching.
I know it's nothing new, but it's so good to see you. We do this every day, and I'm still so amazed.